I want to talk about three entries in this week's reading because, as has so often been the case, and I believe as so often will be the case, almost inevitably with something like a 365-day journey through a single type of philosophy, there is a lot of overlap between these ideas. And I think that they deserve being discussed. This is the fifth in a 52-part series, sixth in a 52-part series, journeying through the daily Stoic here on the channel. And while and whereas I do not believe that keeping up with the readings in the book itself is necessarily all that important, I do hope that you do get the book because there's a lot in the book that I do not talk about, obviously. This is meant to highlight the book, is to sort of be a reader's companion to the book, but not, hopefully, to replace the book. That said, I don't think it is absolutely damning or confounding, probably, if the book is not read alongside this. But the first entry that I want to talk about is January 30th. And the quote from the day comes to us from Epictetus. The subtitle for the page, for the day, is "You don't have to stay on top of everything." The quote is, "If you wish to improve, be content to appear clueless or stupid in extraneous matters. Don't wish to seem knowledgeable. And if some regard you as important, distrust yourself." And the entry from the authors alongside this: "One of the most powerful things you can do as a human being in our hyper-connected 24/7 media world is say, 'I don't know.' Or, more provocatively, 'I don't care.' Most of society seems to have taken it as a commandment that one must know every single current event, watch every episode of every critically acclaimed television series, follow the news religiously, and present themselves to others as an informed and worldly individual. But where is the evidence that this is actually necessary? Is the obligation enforced by the police? Or is it that you're just afraid of seeming silly at a dinner party? Silly at a dinner party. Yes, you owe it to your country and your family to know generally about events that may directly affect them. But that's about all. How much more time, energy, and pure brain power would you have available if you drastically cut your media consumption? How much more rested and present would you feel if you were no longer excited and outraged by every scandal, breaking story, and potential crisis, many of which never come to pass anyway?" I think that this is an extremely prescient entry in today's world. When was this published? I believe it's like 2015, I think, that this book came out. 2016. And this entry has only gotten more and more true with the intervening years. Everything, it seems, is set up in order to piss us off, to turn us on, to run us about. And none of it matters. None of it matters. None of it matters. Sure, there are things which will inevitably involve us. It would have been silly for someone of my generation to have had this mindset about the Iraq War, as so many people my age served and suffered through that war. Still, seemingly, I graduated high school in 2004. This book was printed in 2016. That's a 12-year difference. My entire generation ignored the Iraq War until they were serving in it. My entire generation didn't care about world events until 9/11 happened. My entire generation didn't give a good goddamn about anything on the world stage until that series of years. And even then, it was only in sort of a cursory glance that we really gave a damn until, I have to say, and I don't want to talk about politics on this channel. I don't want to talk about current events really here in this series especially. But over the past few years, the chyron that ticks at the bottom of life has been constant. Not the chyron that ticks at the bottom of CNN or Fox or MSNBC, none of these things. The chyron that ticks at the bottom of life because of the advent of so many different types of social media. What was the last time Facebook paid your light bill? When was the last time that Twitter made you smile? Has Instagram ever done anything productive? I will give it to Facebook and I will give it to Twitter that they have powers of organization. Instagram, I don't think quite so much. But in this way, also, I think Instagram probably should be credited with causing the least drama and with causing the least precipitation of hate. Still, how much of it really matters? Does any of it do any good? Except for this YouTube channel, right? You should hit the like button and make sure you're subscribed. But outside of that, I think everyone would do a good deal to themselves to at least pick, and I'm trying not to preach to the choir. I understand this. I'm also trying not to sound condescending. I am someone who has not had a television in 15 years. I don't think that makes me better. I certainly don't. There's a lot of things that I have missed out on. I've seen a single episode of, what was that? The Big Bang Theory? Not good. Subpar. I saw a single episode of, so the last show that was my show was Scrubs when it was new. Okay, so that's, I don't say that to brag. I think that is necessary to me being me. I think that has contributed a great deal to the Adrian that sits before you. However, there is a great deal of culture on which I have missed out, for the better and for the worse. But if you find yourself, one thing I've tried to do recently is that I've tried to take 1 day per week and I don't get on Twitter. I don't really get on Twitter anyway. I don't get on Instagram. I don't really get on Instagram anyway. But I don't get on YouTube. YouTube is my primary agent of socialization. So picking a day where I don't get on YouTube at all is a big move for me. It's the only connection to the outside world that I have. But I think that it has done me good because what it has done, so there are times in my week where I will be scrolling through YouTube looking for something to watch. That's not the way that I predominantly use YouTube. I set notifications on all the channels that I want to hear from. So any of the channels that I don't want to hear from normally don't make it into my noggin until recently, where I've been pretty much addicted to YouTube as socialization. And this goes back through the whole COVID pandemic, so that's what that is. But it's also tempting on a personal level, like not just consumption level, but output level. It is tempting to try to be Elon Musk, right? Elon Musk, who is the key engineer at Tesla. He is a rocket scientist for SpaceX. He appears on Hardcore History and lectures the host of Hardcore History on World War II air combat, seemingly off the cuff. He's a meme lord. All of these different things. Elon Musk seems to know everything. That's dangerous for people who are not Elon Musk. A famous example of someone who is extremely heralded by society, but was so unplugged as to make you wonder the veracity of the stories about them, the veracity of their very intelligence. Albert Einstein did not know his phone number. Albert Einstein did not know his phone number, and when someone asked him why, he said, "Why should I know it when I can just pull up a book and find it?" Albert Einstein didn't know his phone number. So if someone that brilliant, and if you, so this right here, Einstein by Walter Isaacson, if you have not read that book, I highly recommend it, because Isaacson does a great job of illuminating the type of brilliance and the type of creativity and the nexus where those things met that was Albert Einstein. If someone that brilliant was not necessarily so plugged in that he could pick up the phone and call his wife, either of them, then why should we know our fourth best friend's dinner from last evening? I mean, do we really need to? Right? Why should we be kept abreast of the 34th season of Family Guy? Do we really need to? Sure, those things are nice to have, but I think, and again, I know that this sounds preachy, especially coming from someone as disconnected from general culture as myself, but one day a week, man. One day a week, cutting off that tie, the primary agent of socialization that you find yourself falling victim to, and I think you find greater things to fill the void. So January was listed in this book under the subheading Clarity. We move into February, the subheading here being Passions and Emotions. And on February 1st, we get another quote from Marcus Aurelius. From Meditations, the subheading for February 1st was For the Hot-Headed Man. Marcus tells us this: keep this thought handy when you feel a fit of rage coming on. It isn't manly to be enraged. Rather, gentleness and civility are more human and therefore manlier. A real man doesn't give way to anger and discontent, and such a person has strength, courage, and endurance, unlike the angry and complaining. The nearer a man comes to a calm mind, the closer he is to strength. That is, again, from Marcus Aurelius in Meditations, and the subtext from this, from our authors: why do athletes talk trash to each other? Why do they deliberately say offensive and nasty things to their competitors when the refs aren't looking? To provoke a reaction. Distracting and angering opponents is an easy way to knock them off their game. Try to remember that when you find yourself getting mad, anger is not impressive or tough, it's a mistake. It's weakness. Depending on what you're doing, it might even be a trap that someone laid for you. Fans and opponents called boxer Joe Louis the ring robot because he was utterly unemotional. His cold, calm demeanor was far more terrifying than any crazed look or emotional outburst would have been. Strength is the ability to maintain a hold of oneself. It's being the person who never gets mad, who cannot be rattled, because they are in control of their passions rather than controlled by their passions. This is something I have struggled with in my life greatly. And part of what this series is going to be for me is catharsis. Part of what this series is going to be for me is confession. Part of what this series is going to be for me is meditation. Anger is something with which I have struggled in my life as long as I can remember. And it did not strike me until I had a coworker who had the same issues. He would get angry, and it seemed, through watching him and observing those times where he got angry and how silly it was that he was angry at that moment. led me to realize in my head, normally when I get angry, it's because I feel the situation is out of my control. If a customer were to come in and require something to be done and I didn't know how to do it, I'd get mad. Of course I'd get mad. That situation was out of my control. I might look like an idiot bumbling and fumbling around trying to do whatever it was that this customer had expected because I did not know how to do it. And just real quick, a small thing here. Marcus says, it is not manly to be enraged. Here's the thing. A lot of times stuff like this gets the whole criticism for the same criticism like Fight Club gets. The bro-lit type criticism. Oh, bros are reading about Stoicism. Bros are trying to be Stoic. Bros, his name was Robert Paulson. But when Marcus here says manly, I don't think he's saying it in contrast to womanly. He's saying it in contrast to childlike. Because in the state of childhood, children are without control. Children throw fits and get angry when they want something, but they do not have the control to get it. So the thing here that strikes me is that when I am feeling anger rise in me, I need to take that as a lesson that I have missed something. There is something here for me to learn. That is, for me, the automatic undercut of anger. Okay, I'm angry because I'm the idiot here. And, okay, comic reference here. Wolverine. Wolverine, known for being the mad guy, angry. And what does he do? He does not solve problems, he runs through them, right? Iron Man, known as cool, calm, collected, always figured things out to attack them. So that's just a small pop culture reference, but it's one. It's a very pinpoint sort of idea on this, and one that I think is going to be explicated further from this situation on February 3rd, the subtitle of which was "The Source of Your Anxiety." For me, anxiety and anger sort of hand in hand. This is from Epictetus in Discourses. When I see an anxious person, I ask myself, what do they want? For if a person wasn't wanting something outside of their own control, why would they be stricken by anxiety? If a person didn't want something that was out of their control, why would they be stricken with anxiety? So the explication from Ryan Holiday and Stephen Hanselman here. The anxious father worried about his children. What does he want? A world that is always safe. A frenzied traveler. What does she want? For the weather to hold and for traffic to part so she can make her flight. A nervous investor, that the market will turn around and an investment will pay off. All of these scenarios hold the same thing in common. As Epictetus says, it's wanting something outside our control. Getting worked up, getting excited, nervously pacing, these intense, pained, and anxious moments show us at our most futile and servile. Staring at the clock, at the ticker, at the next checkout lane over, at the sky, it's as if we all belong to a religious cult that believes the gods of fate will only give us what we want if we sacrifice our peace of mind. I'm going to read that again. It is as if we all belong to a religious cult that believes the gods of fate will only give us what we want if we sacrifice our peace of mind. Today, when you find yourself getting anxious, ask yourself, why are my insides twisted into knots? Am I in control here, or is my anxiety? And most important, is my anxiety doing me any good? So I think that anxiety and anger, they're sort of kissing emotions. but they're like the sun and the moon. They would be together, but they can't be. They're always chasing each other. You are angry. I am angry. Let me say it that way. I am angry about situations which are out of my control and present. I am anxious about situations that are out of my control and absent. In this way, both of these emotions are without worth or merit. I will save some use for anger because I think there is a time and a place. But I think it's always important to remember that if something is out of your control, the anxiety serves no purpose. If something is out of your control, the anxiety does you no good. And that's important to remember. That is very important to remember. When something is out of your control and it is not present, there is nothing you can do. It is futile and servile, we are reminded, to be anxious over that event. What might we do instead? Plot, plan, work on something to get rid of the anxiety. So here's one of the things that is so compelling to me about the Stoic philosophy. And I'm going to quote Hippopotamus. It's all on a bitch now. You've heard the phrase, it's all on a bitch now. Which means there's no one else that can do anything about it. It's your responsibility. The responsibility to not have to get angry is yours. The responsibility to never have to be anxious is yours. But they are not things that you do post-mortem. They are things which are done prior to. They are things which are done in the preparation. So for example, one situation that has often caused me anxiety in life, I'll go back to work. A work example. A manager leaving and a new manager coming in. That causes me anxiety. You never know. You never know what that new guy's going to do. You never know what if the new lady's going to be crazy, right? You just never know. And it's out of your control. What's not out of your control is you could have been better at your job. You could have been better at your job so that you were the manager incoming or outgoing. Unpopular to talk about, unfun to imagine, but all of that blame falls on you. If there is a cause for anxiety there, it's because there's something in the past that we didn't take care of, not well enough. Obviously, there are extenuating circumstances like this mentions. I worry about my niece, right? A father worries about his children, right? But those are things which I think fall outside of necessarily anxiety because they seem to be paradigm shifting. I've never met a mother who did not worry about her children. I've never met a father who was not afraid that something would happen to his child at school or whatever. Well, I have, but you rather not talk about those individuals. But that seems to be a paradigm shift, so that anxiety and fear are not necessarily the proper emotions, the proper words used to describe the emotions. The place that I think is necessary for anger, I want to go back to that. I said I don't think it's necessary. I don't think that it is productive to discount anger entirely. I think that anger can be an extremely useful tool when channeled towards work. If we recognize those things in our lives that we do not like, we recognize those things in our lives which will cause anxiety or do cause anxiety, and we use anger to channel ourselves towards that thing which would solve it, right? So, but we have to be aware that oftentimes when channeling anger, there can be what's the proper term here? You get splashback. If I say, okay, I'm tired of being the dummy on the outside and having constant manager turnover, and I don't know if the new guy's going to come in and just have a wild hair against me. I'm tired of that. I'm going to outperform at work. And I'm going to put it on my shoulders to make things go better, and I'm going to focus on getting a promotion. It's very easy to channel that type of anxiety into anger through which we work. But there's collateral damage oftentimes, and that is, again, to go back to what Marcus had said, unmanly. It is not manly to not like our job and be big enough a prick because we're working with anger to negatively affect our coworkers, right? But if we channel that anger productively, I think that there is always a place for it. And just simply evolutionarily, we have to recognize that. What good was fear in the face of a lion? In the face of a lion, probably not all that good, right? Maybe anger would win you a battle. Fear and anxiety would not. You're not running away from a lion. If that lion wanted to eat you, you were his. You were on the menu. Anger, however, if one were able to muster the anger in the face of that thing which they could not do, that thing which was out of their control, the presentation of a lion, one was able to channel anger. Look, Mike Tyson has the famous quote, "Everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face." You're not punching a lion in the face, but if you threw that rock just right and hit him in the eye, nobody wants to lose an eye, not even a lion, right? So there is always a place, and always has been a place, for constructive anger, but it has to be constructive. That is all I have for this reading through the Daily Stoic. I hope to have you back next week as we take on another 7 days of 360, actually it's 366, meditations on wisdom, perseverance, and the art of living. Let me know in the comments what was your favorite excerpt from this week, if you are in fact reading along, and if you took anything from this reading. I hope to see you next week.